The story takes place in Hong Kong during the 1990s, a time when crime rates were high, especially crimes related to fraud and deception. There was a young man named Houkai, a reckless and twisted individual who harbored a darkness within him that few could imagine. In 1978, at the age of 19, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud and swindling. He was later released on parole, but there was no hope for change. He returned to the criminal world and was jailed again in 1985 for another year. Houkai became known throughout the prison system. There wasn't a single inmate who didn't know his name. He suffered from chronic headaches. There wasn't a day that passed without him feeling excruciating pain in his head. This condition continued until his release in 1992, when he was 33 years old. That's when his life took a drastic turn. One day, while wandering the streets, he heard of a fortune teller who was said to be able to solve any problem. Driven by curiosity, he decided to visit him. He put on his best clothes and knocked on the fortune teller's door. Inside, the man was seated on a mat, surrounded by burning incense and an air of mystery. Houkai sat down and began to pour out his heart, his sins, his headaches, his belief that he was cursed. He cried as he spoke. When he finished, the fortune teller looked at him and said, "Don't be so hard on yourself. It's not your fault you were born this way. The devil dwells within you. It's your fate. But there is a cure." Then the fortune teller paused, as if waiting. Houkai understood he needed to pay, so he handed over some money. As soon as the money was in his hands, the fortune teller continued, "Your problem lies in your diet. You need to return to the food of the ancestors, dog and monkey brains." Houkai was stunned. Could eating the brain of a dog or monkey really cure my headaches? He thought. But the fortune teller persisted, convincing him that their ancestors lived in perfect health eating such things. And so, Houkai began his bizarre journey. He roamed the streets, collecting dogs and monkeys, cracking open their skulls, cooking their brains, and eating them, hoping for a cure to his endless headaches. But something inside him felt off. He couldn't accept what he was doing. He felt disgusted, yet he couldn't stop. And this is where the story starts to spiral into madness. He ate their brains again and said to himself, "A normal person would forget about this. Would I go and eat the brain of a dog or a monkey? No, a normal person wouldn't forget something like this so easily." Do you think Houkai would just let it go? Of course not. Houkai said, "If I want to get better, I need to find a brain that truly has value. Not a dog's, not a monkey's. Nothing will fulfill the fortune teller's prophecy and cure my headaches, except a human brain. Yes, a human brain." And so, Houkai began searching for people to kill and eat their brains. He tried several times to commit murder, but he couldn't. All his life he had been a conman, never a killer or a butcher. He had never taken a life before, and now he was trying to kill and eat a brain. It was too much. He came up with a plan to make it easier. He took all the money he had saved over the years and bought a barbecue restaurant, one of those places that sells meat skewers, steaks, and kebabs. He opened the place and advertised job openings, and soon, many poor people applied. Houkai interviewed them himself, picking only those he thought were suitable. Most of them were uneducated and desperate, and he rejected them. You might ask, why reject them? It's just a grill restaurant. Why care if they're educated? The answer is simple. Houkai wasn't looking for just anyone. He wanted a smart, educated young man, because he believed that only a smart brain would have the healing power he needed. He didn't want to eat just any brain. Eventually, he found the right candidate, a smart, well-educated young man. Houkai hired him with a generous salary. The young man started working, and Houkai decided to kill him on the very first day. They prepared some vegetables and meat, began grilling together, and Houkai said, "Bring out the wine, let's celebrate your first day on the job." He said, "Come, let's toast and enjoy some grilled meat." The poor guy agreed, unaware that Houkai was drinking only to gather the courage to kill him, because Houkai couldn't kill unless he was drunk. While the young man was eating, Houkai approached him from behind, raised a cleaver, and struck him on the head, splitting his skull in two. The young man collapsed on the floor of the restaurant. Houkai sat next to the body, sipping wine with eerie calm, as if nothing had happened. Then, he peeled open the skull like a fruit, took out the brain, and ate it raw. When he finished, he waited for the medicine to kick in, because to him, this was a cure. He sat there for about half an hour. Then, he began dismembering the body. He chopped off the limbs and cut the rest into small pieces, using them for kebabs. He made the pieces as small as possible. The parts he couldn't use, like the hands and feet, he threw into the oven and burned. No one suspected a thing. The smell of burning was normal in a barbecue restaurant. Houkai continued this routine, hiring, then killing, without arousing any suspicion. He ended up killing 4 employees. One day, he hired another intelligent young man named Limoji. But Limoji was annoying, always complaining about his salary, constantly asking for raises. He was energetic and wouldn't sit still. Houkai couldn't stand him and eventually fired him. But Limoji didn't give up. He stayed near the restaurant, hoping to come back once things calmed down. Late one night, Limoji saw Houkai arriving with heavy black garbage bags, looking around nervously. Out of curiosity, Limoji offered to help, thinking the bags were just meat for the next day. He followed Houkai into the restaurant, and then he saw it, a human arm sticking out of the oven. In shock, he gasped, loud enough for Houkai to hear. Houkai turned around instantly. Without hesitation, he grabbed the axe and rushed at Limoji. The young man had nothing to defend himself with. Houkai killed him and chopped him up, adding him to the menu for the next day. Later, Houkai would say that Limoji's brain was the most delicious brain he had ever tasted. And it was that brain that cured his headache. He said the pain vanished first from the right side, then from the left. Houkai believed he was healed. He enjoyed peaceful nights, slept without needing to drink, and thought that eating brains had cured him. But it was all an illusion, like a man who takes a sugar pill and thinks it's real medicine. As time passed, it turned into obsession. He no longer killed to be cured. Now, murder had become a hobby, an addiction, and he couldn't stop. In the neighborhood where Houkai's restaurant was located, people began to notice something strange. Several people had gone missing, 6 or 7 in total. Most of them were former employees of Houkai. The police began to suspect something. They visited the restaurant daily, asking about the missing people, but Houkai denied knowing anything. After 2 months of investigations, the police stopped coming. Things quieted down. Even though his headaches were gone, Houkai began to feel the urge again, the desire to eat brains. Not to heal this time, but because killing had become his pleasure. An addiction he could no longer escape. An employee. Can I slaughter him and eat his brain? No, I don't want that. I'm tired of this routine. I want some excitement, some fun. I want to change things up a bit. I'm tired of men. I want to kill women. I want to kill women. Many women come to the restaurant. Maybe women's brains are tastier, that's what he told himself. So Houkai chose a woman who always visited the restaurant to eat meat, sitting a little, eating, and drinking. She came every day after work. She was beautiful and well-groomed, eating, drinking, and smoking. At that time in China, women didn't usually smoke unless they were rebels or gangsters, and that's how people saw them. Houkai thought it was worth it. She was attractive, smoked and drank. This was the one he wanted. Not because he loved her or wanted to be with her, but because he wanted to eat her brain. That was all. One dark night, people began leaving the restaurant, and the customers thinned as the time grew late. Houkai stood by the restaurant door and told anyone who wanted to enter, "We're closed, last orders have been taken," and put up a "closed" sign. Then a man named Lee arrived. He was drunk and worked at a camera film developing shop, for old cameras that needed film development. It was known that when Lee was drunk, he became aggressive and didn't know who he was dealing with. Lee tried to enter, but Houkai stopped him, saying, "The restaurant is closed, get out." Lee punched him in the face and forced his way inside. Houkai was scared, the woman was inside, and he feared she might ruin his plan. He tried to get Lee out quietly, begging him to hit him outside, not in front of her, but Lee was not in his right mind. Lee grabbed a chair, broke it over Houkai's head, and said, "Get me some wine and grill the meat, whether you like it or not, got it?" Houkai replied, "Right away, sir," and brought them for him. But the woman, seeing what had happened, ran out of the restaurant, spoiling Houkai's plan and leaving him beaten as well. The next day, Houkai woke up aching all over from the beating, full of resentment toward Lee, but decided to act wisely, not recklessly. He took some old film rolls from his home and went to Lee, saying, "These films are damaged, I want to develop them." Lee had sobered up and looked remorseful for what he had done to Houkai. But Houkai beat him to it by apologizing first, saying, "You're like my older brother, and I'm sorry I didn't let you in the restaurant last night." Lee felt embarrassed and said, "I'm the one who should apologize. I don't know what came over me." He took the films to develop them for free as a gesture of goodwill. Despite his grudge, Houkai decided not to kill him immediately but to strengthen their relationship. They became friends. Lee invited Houkai to his home, and Houkai met Lee's wife and only daughter. One day, Houkai invited Lee to the restaurant for dinner, and they sat and talked. Lee began to confide in Houkai about his problems, his wife, his daughter, and his poor financial situation. Houkai got up from the table as if to fetch something. While Lee continued talking, Houkai came up behind him and struck him on the head with a cleaver until he was sure Lee was dead. Then Houkai called Lee's wife and said, "Come quickly, your husband is at the restaurant, drunk, and I can't carry him alone." They lived on the same street, so she hurried over. When she entered the restaurant, she saw Houkai alone and asked, "Where is he? I don't see him." Houkai pointed and said, "There, behind the table." The wife was surprised when Houkai pointed to her husband standing behind the cutting table. That table was not meant for customers but for chefs and kitchen staff. Since her husband was a guest, it was natural for him to be in front of the table, not behind it. She thought to herself, "The table is less than a meter tall, and if someone were behind it, at least his head would be visible. But I see nothing. It seems he fell behind it from being very drunk, not standing as Houkai said. He must have fallen, drunk to the point he can't stand anymore." She quickly approached the table to check. It only took her a couple of seconds to focus her eyes on the floor, and there she saw the unbelievable. Her husband's body was lying on one side, and his head was on the other side. She had no time to scream or gasp. The moment she caught sight of the scene, Houkai raised the cleaver and struck her on the head with force. Do you think it ended there? That he only killed Lee and his wife and ate their brains? No, it wasn't over yet. By God, it wasn't over. Houkai left the restaurant and went directly to the workplace of Lee's daughter. He rushed in and said, "Your father and mother had an argument, your father was drunk, and your mother refused to let him into the house. Come quickly, I can't handle the situation alone." The girl knew well that her father lost control when drunk. She was always the one to intervene and stop the fights between him and her mother. So she trusted him and went out with him immediately. As soon as they entered the restaurant, Houkai locked the door behind her. Before she could grasp what was happening, he raised the cleaver and killed her as well. He spent the whole night cutting their bodies, and what was left, he put in the oven until dawn to turn them into ashes. That night, he ate 3 brains, in the height of his happiness. Strangely, despite his mental illness, Houkai had friends he valued and respected. He had a childhood friend named Lon, about whom he said, "It's impossible for me to kill him or eat his brain. He's my friend, I love and respect him. How could I eat him? The idea disgusts me. I can't, it's impossible." One day, Lon said to him, "What do you think if I bring my girlfriend, and we have dinner together at your restaurant?" Houkai replied, "Why not? The restaurant is yours. Come, let's have dinner and change the atmosphere." Indeed, Lon came with his girlfriend, and they all sat together at the restaurant eating and chatting until late, and all the customers left. Houkai closed the restaurant, and they continued their evening inside. Lon had a pager, a device that receives the caller's number to call back later. Suddenly, he received an important number. He excused himself and asked Houkai to use the phone, but Houkai said he didn't have one. The nearest phone booth was an hour and a half away each way. Since the call was very important, Lon left the restaurant to make the call. So Houkai was left alone with his friend's girlfriend. They drank together, and a strange atmosphere prevailed between them. Dark thoughts invaded Houkai's mind. "I respect my friend, I can't eat his brain, nor his girlfriend's brain, but maybe I can harass her. She's a disrespectful girl. Why is she still here at this time? Surely, she won't refuse." The girl got up and headed to the bar to get a drink, so Houkai approached her from behind and reached out to harass her. But she immediately turned around and kicked him in a sensitive spot, a blow that left him unable to move for 10 minutes. She started shouting and scolding him. Houkai was shocked by her reaction and filled with anger. He grabbed a chair and hit her face repeatedly until it was completely smashed. All this happened within the first half hour after Lon left. After calming down a bit, Houkai realized he couldn't explain to his friend what had happened, so he thought, "He'll ask me, why is her face disfigured? I left her fine. Why did I return her broken? This isn't a car." He decided to hide the body. He placed her on the cutting table and chopped her into small pieces. It took 45 minutes. Then he put the remains in the oven. 3 hours later, Lon returned to the restaurant and asked, "Where is my girlfriend?" Houkai replied, "She went to the bathroom. She was just here a moment ago." Lon sat down and started telling him about the call and its importance. While talking, he noticed meat on the table. He asked, "What is this meat? It looks fresh." Houkai answered, "I was upset after you left me with your girlfriend, so I took out tomorrow's meat to prepare." Lon opened the oven door but didn't see anything suspicious. Then he started wondering, "Where is my girlfriend? She's been long in the bathroom." Houkai said, No, she left the bathroom and then left." Lon was surprised. "A moment ago you said she was in the bathroom, and now you say she left?" Lon began to suspect that Houkai was lying. Houkai felt trapped, no escape. He started drinking alcohol while his friend kept asking, "Where is my girlfriend? What did you do to her?" When things got unbearable, he finished his glass, raised the cleaver, looked at his childhood friend, then hit him on the head, shouting, "Sorry, sorry." He hit him repeatedly, tears streaming from his eyes. then chopped him up until dawn. In 1995, Houkai fell in love. He loved a girl named Han. She came to his restaurant one day to eat, and as soon as he saw her, he liked her. She started coming often, and her visits turned into romantic dates. Those dates turned into an engagement and then marriage. Mashallah, Houkai was walking on the path of God. His marriage actually lasted for more than a year. As time passed, Houkai grew older and signs of aging appeared on him, but he was never blessed with children. Thank God he wasn't blessed with children, because his story was filled with darkness. During that period, he stopped all his criminal activities, and it's unknown whether there was a reason for that or if he simply hid his crimes from everyone. Only God knows. After some time of their marriage, his poor wife Han began to suffer. She became very ill, and over time her condition worsened and she weakened. Her husband, the butcher, noticed her declining health but ignored it as if he saw nothing. However, one thing caught his attention and finally made him notice. He observed that Han was bleeding from her uterus area, especially after marital relations. She would go straight to the bathroom, lock the door, and cry. It's likely that Han was suffering from ovarian cysts or uterine cancer, which may have been the reason she never bore children all those years. But do you think Houkai stood by her? Impossible. This man who ate human brains, would you expect him to comfort her? All he did was accuse her of infidelity and told her, "You're a sinner, you surely gave me an STD." He didn't believe her even when she swore she had never been touched by anyone before. Then he decided to punish her in his own way, just like he did with his friend, the photographer, and his family. He took a kitchen knife, slaughtered his wife, then chopped her into small pieces. After cutting her up, he didn't know how to get rid of the body because this time he killed her at home, not in the place where the oven was. So he put the remains in plastic bags, placed them on his three-wheeled bike, and rushed to the restaurant. On the way, his wife's arm fell out of one of the bags without him noticing, while some children were playing in the street. One of the children saw the arm and started screaming hysterically. Within minutes, the police arrived after the neighbors witnessed the terrifying scene. When they entered the restaurant, they found Houkai cleaning the knife from blood and preparing to dispose of the body in the oven. They arrested him immediately. At first, the police thought it was an honor killing, but when the photographer's brother talked about his brother's relationship with Houkai, the course of the investigation changed. Houkai confessed everything to the psychiatrist. He said he was searching for a cure for humanity, that his experiments were like the inventions of airplanes and cars, and that one day he would be honored. But he was not honored. Instead, he was convicted and sentenced to death by firing squad, and the sentence was carried out the same year. Now, after everything you've read, imagine you were one of the customers at Houkai's restaurant, eating, drinking, laughing, while he was hiding the most horrific crimes in the kitchen. Would you have suspected him? Have you ever entered a restaurant and felt something was just off? And do you believe evil is born within a person, or does life create the monster inside? Writing hand, share your thoughts in the comments. Red heart, like if the story gripped you. Repeat button and share it with friends who enjoy shocking, true stories.